Welcome to the Creative Play and Podcast Network. Join us as we share our favorite RPGs, one-shot games, tabletop games, reviews, and convention panels. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, a Sign to Ragnarok story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and rpgpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
Well, it's 10 o'clock. Are we waiting on people still?
No, I think Jay couldn't make it.
Oh, Jay couldn't make it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get started?
Yeah,
let's
let's
get
do
started. So, hi, my name is Brian Haas. I am a film critic for 30 years. I'm a writer. I found this convention last year, and I am sold. I will be here forever. Joe can never get rid of me now. He made some terrible mistake thinking I was a writer, and now he can't get rid of me. But in just this last year, and I don't accredit it all to TusCon, but I definitely think it helps put you in the right mindset. I placed 10th in the NYC short screenplay. There was like 1,500 people that did that, and my screenplay finished 10th. I just finished a screenplay it's like outside of my wheelhouse. It's not like stuff that I normally do, and I think it's probably the best thing I've ever done. And like this convention puts you in the mindset of creating. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I like to talk about stuff that this is one of the panels that I really want to do, because people just argue all day long that Hollywood's just vomiting out the same stuff over and over again, and to a certain degree, that is true, but like there's definitely stuff out there that people need to be looking for. So, anyways, that's who I am.
Hi, I'm Mary. I write sci-fi and fantasy. I also do, I think, mostly TV critiques for a publication called The Workprint online. These are some of my books. One about a girl who slays demons, one about a cryptid mantis man, and yeah, that's who I am.
I'll get that one from you later.
Ooh, awesome.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Marty Ketola. I'm a local filmmaker. I shot part of a movie at TusCon about 3 years ago called Love Song of William H. Shaw. A couple of you out there are in it. And we're actually going to show a clip from it tonight in the video room around 10 o'clock-ish. That's as soon as they could get it in there. But the movie's almost done. The world's shutting down for a bit there, slowed us for a bit, but we're getting it finished, and it'll be out the beginning of next year.
Excellent.
Hopefully like on Tubi or Amazon, something like that.
Yeah, Tubi's amazing. Like in terms of like the stuff that they have available, it's basically everything. I mean, a real boon for indie filmmakers that don't have the kind of budget or marketing or anything like that. It gives them a marketplace. So I'm very thankful for Tubi, even with the commercials.
Does Amazon let you, I guess, self-publish film the way they let you self-publish books?
I think they do. They've become more strict about what they put on there. Like I've even heard Psycho 8 got pulled off a couple of times.
It's changed in the last couple of years. It used to be much more open, but yeah.
Yeah, I went through a distributor who put it on to Prime, so I didn't really have personal experience going through them, but I have heard it's getting a little more difficult.
And, I know everybody loves the Marvel movies. I love the Marvel movies, right? They're all the same, but I love them, I mean, it's
They're comfort food.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I know exactly what's going to happen. In the grand scheme of things, everything's going to be fixed and resolved by the end of it, and, they'll ask some new questions or whatever. But, I think too many people these days think that's all that's out there, and the pandemic really hasn't helped things any in terms of I thought it might be an interesting time, and we might eventually get there, but it's just been I have a lot of friends that are filmmakers that run the gamut, from like very big names that you would probably recognize to, the people that we were talking about here that just crowdfund it, and do all that sort of stuff. And so it's like it just changed everything. And so like the way that the production codes have changed, and having very strict guidelines in terms of safety precautions and everybody's health in mind, it really has sort of changed things. And the studios are very nervous still. Disney might be the only one who's not really sweating things, because they're just like, we got a great distribution system right in place. They were thinking way ahead of everybody else. All the other ones are sort of still kind of, wait and see, or they'll sit on these movies and, think, oh, well, if I can release it during a certain time frame or whatever, maybe it's gonna. And so they're being very selective in terms of stuff that's getting released to the big screen. On the other hand, there's movies that come out like Smile. Smile was supposed to go directly to Peacock, and they said, let's throw it in some theaters, see what it does, right? $160 million later, I guess that it was okay. The one that I really like to point out, and this is where I hope the turning point happens, because like this has happened in the past. It used to be in the 60s and 70s, regionally, there were a lot of filmmakers, from whatever region you were in, that would make films specifically for you, and they would run on the grindhouses or the drive-ins or, whatever. And with the studios coming in and buying all of the theaters in the 60s and 70s and really just sort of making it them, they just sort of edged all those people out. And Terrifier 2 was all that was all DIY. They crowdsourced that whole thing. They obviously had like something that, they knew was something, but like it was supposed to be released in movie theaters for 3 days, and it's still running. Like they've released it at the beginning of October, and they still don't understand why it's like the box office is not going down. It keeps going up every week. It's like this doesn't happen with movies. And what I'm really hoping is that Hollywood pays attention, and some movies like Fall is another one. Fall was an independent movie that got bought by Lionsgate because they're like, I think I can sell that, right? And they were able to do that. And so I'm hoping that this sort of comes into a new era of getting the small guys the opportunities again, because like that's where a lot of the really super interesting stuff, ends up. And those small guys are, they're getting released to like the streaming services and stuff like that, but it's not the same as like being in a movie house. And I hope that changes. I don't know if it will. I guess we'll see.
I feel like you see it a little bit with horror, because there has been this horror renaissance, and I think part of the reason is movies like Get Out did so well,
right.
And they're relatively low risk for these big
right.
studios. Like, okay, throw a filmmaker like, I don't know, $10 million for a studio, that's like pocket change.
Right.
And then if the return's so big, it's like a good gamble. So who knows? It might work for other genres too.
Yeah, I'm hoping. Like Jason Blum has done, that's how his whole business model is that, Michael Bay sort of set the standard with Platinum Dunes about 20 years ago. I didn't really like a lot of the remake stuff that they did, but like he just knew there's a market for this, right? And I can take advantage of that. And the thing about horror is that in times like this, it becomes very important because, you can talk about difficult social problems in a way that you just can't come right out and, like a movie like Spontaneous, which I hope, I keep feeling like I'm, introducing everybody to this movie. Streaming on Prime. It's a movie about kids who they're going to school, and then all of a sudden one day, kids just start blowing up, right? Just like spontaneously combusting, and it has all of these overtones, like school shootings, and like COVID, like it happened during COVID, and I'm like, geez, like you talk about hitting the nail on the head, and it can talk about that in a way that's more palatable than, like. Nobody wants to watch a movie about school shootings. Like, we don't want to see it on television. We don't want to see it in the news. And nobody's going to, like, put themselves through that for two. There are people. I've done it before. I'm a film critic. They'll go see this movie about, and it's just like, okay, well, I guess I will. But like, I know nobody's going to go watch those movies. Like a movie like We Need to Talk About Kevin with Tilda Swinton and, oh God, the guy who's
Ezra Miller?
Ezra Miller, thank you. Who's just like, we really did need to talk about
Speaking
Kevin.
about spontaneously combusting?
Right, yeah. And like, it's a good movie, right? I like it, but like, I could tell you, like, it's a good like movie about school shit. Nobody's gonna go out and watch it because they don't want to watch that shit. I don't blame them. I honestly don't want to watch it either. But Spontaneous, I can palate it in that context, right? And they really do a great job of like getting you invested in the characters before stuff starts happening. So when the kids start blowing up, you really care, And so stuff like that, I think it's just super important. And I am still like horror. I'm still seeing a good stream of like all sorts of thoughtful, really good stuff, and that's always sort of when times like this happen because people want that as like comfort, like you were saying.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges about getting people back into theaters, though, is that nothing can compete with the comfort of your own home.
Mm-hmm.
When you can pause the movie when you want to,
Right.
when you can like order pizza and no one's going to yell at you for bringing it in.
Right.
And I think the movies that do make it onto the big screen, they're the ones that you want to see in a theater. That's why like big Marvel movies, like you want to see the special effects. And horror too, like there's something about being in a dark theater that's scarier than
With a
being
bunch
in your
of
living
people.
room.
Mhm.
Exactly. So I think theaters are going to have to step it up if we want to get people back into theater for movies that are not big special effects movies or horror where it's like you want to be sitting alone in the dark.
Are we getting to be a divide between people who stream rather than go to the movies?
I mean, I'm on both sides too. So because like there's nothing that's made me happier than the way that small movies have been released. Like I wish this was when I was a kid. I was growing up in a podunk town that had. I mean, we had like video stores and stuff like that, but I wasn't getting cool stuff. Like the cool stuff was I'd hear about it later and have to go find it out. And like now, if there's something cool that happens, everybody can know about it like immediately. And so something like Deadstream that just got released on Shudder, and it's kind of like Evil Dead with a GoPro. Kind of Evil Dead Light with a GoPro. It's not quite as ramping up the violence and horror or whatever, but like everybody immediately knew it, and everybody was immediately about this movie, and like we all just sort of like. So I love the fact that we can all have that connection because a lot of time, especially when I was a kid, it would roll out to the big cities first, and so if you had friends in the big city, maybe they'd tell you about it or something like that. And then it'd roll out to like the smaller places. If you're lucky, maybe you got the second rollout, or maybe it played your dollar theater, after it was done, going through all the big towns or whatever. And then I had to wait, 18 months, 2 years to see it on video or whatever. And now it's just like, no, it's available at midnight. Let's start watching this right now. But to what Mary was saying, like I do think, and this is something because I program movies, right? So this is something that I think about all the time, right? I never thought I'd get into live events, and here I am, like talking in front of all you guys, and one of the things that has really sort of changed because like a lot of times it was just like I would do the comfort movies and people would just show up, right? So if I do the Breakfast Club, yeah, I'm going to sell that out because people want to see the Breakfast Club, and like now it's like people can watch Ferris Bueller at home, right? And it's so there's got to be more to what it is. And so like whenever I'm pitching something to like my program manager or to somebody at a different movie theater that I don't normally like, I've done stuff at the Loft, and I always pitch it as value added that I'm bringing, right? I'm going to bring my expertise. I'm going to talk in depth about the movie. Going to have a QA afterwards. Get the good discussion. Hopefully keep them there a little bit longer. Maybe they'll buy a little extra popcorn, or another beer or something like that. And just like I have to, and I have to have those things because like it's not just enough to show the movie anymore. Even if it's something that everybody loves. And I love the weird shit. So like I really have to like work extra time to do that sort of stuff. So
I think that's been happening through all businesses. After the COVID is they have to offer more service because the product is the product.
mm-hmm.
And that's what you're doing. You're offering
Yeah.
more service to pull people in for that.
Like for instance, like my program director does like movie sing-alongs, right? So we'll, they do Rent, they do Rocky Horror, they do whatever, everybody sings along, right? They do movie parties where it's, like your favorite movies, and then they give you props. And so, like, when certain things happen in the movie, everybody can stand up and cheer and, interact and stuff like that. We do stuff that, like, nobody else can do. Like, we cut up old, like, television stuff that's just been sitting around forever and nobody even knows that it even exists anymore. And, like, we just did one with William Shatner, where it's just all the stuff he did in between when Star Trek ended and before Star Trek the movie. And it is insane. It is insane. You're just like, somebody please, like, tell Bill you don't have to accept every job that's offered to you. But he did, because he didn't,
I think you're hitting on something about the place of theater movies in our culture. Like, it used to be that was where you went to see movies. And I guess if you go way back, like, going to the movies was like going to the theater. They even had overtures and intermissions like you would at theater. That's why old movies are so freaking long, because it was meant to be your entire evening. And then it kind of became more of a casual thing, like, it's Friday, I'm bored, let's go to the movies. But that was kind of the only place you could see movies. And now that's not true anymore. Like, the default is, okay, I can watch a movie from my couch. And so theaters, like I said, have to step it up because it's become an event. Like, people still want to go to events. Like, if anything, the pandemic showed, you can get everything at home, but you still want to go out. You still want to go with other people, but there has to be a reason.
I mean, Halloween Ends made $45 million. I hated it. I fucking hated that movie. And I was, like, actively angry at the way that they, like, ended the film and everything. But, like, it still made $45 million its opening weekend, even though I watched it at home on Peacock, because I'm like, you're not getting any more of my money. I have learned this lesson the hard way 5 times or whatever already. Halloween Ends.
Oh.
But people still went because they still want that communal feeling of, like, seeing a movie like Halloween, And so there is something to that.
You were saying about movies being a big event. The roadshow movies were in response to television. Because before, in the 30s and 40s and early 50s, movies were all a mass thing that you went to maybe a couple of times a week. Then television hit and everybody was staying home, and so Hollywood decided, well, we got to offer something. Television does not, and that's when they came out with the big road shows like Cleopatra and Dr. Zhivago and all the.
No, I think we're seeing something like that now with all
It's
these, like,
coming
Marvel
back
movies,
around.
and like Jurassic World and stuff. It's like, it's all stuff that it looks better, bigger.
Right.
Yeah.
Or look at, like, what Kevin Smith's been doing, right? I'm not the hugest Kevin Smith fan, but I respect the way that he markets his movie like nobody else. He's going to be in Phoenix in like 2 weeks showing Clerks 3. I don't care, right? It's not my thing, right? But, like, he has a super devoted audience. They're all going to come out. They're all going to have that, experience together. And he's charging more. It's like $35, $40. And hey, Jay and Silent Bob are there, and they can talk about the movie, right afterwards or whatever. But, like, this, I'm seeing it more and more, right? This is another thing that we're getting more into, is bringing people in so that they can talk about their movie, and then we'll charge, $25, $30 to see a movie that you've already seen, that you might even own, But hey, like so-and-so is going to come, like Frank Miller came and talked about, Sin City. And, they were giving away, like, signed Frank Miller, and it's like $100 a ticket, but they sold it out because, like, Frank Miller's there, you're getting a one-of-a-kind Frank Miller item, and then he's going to talk about Sin City afterwards, And he's, like, this frail old man. It was really kind of, cute to see this, like, wobbly old guy, and everybody came out and loved it. So, yeah.
Several years ago, when I first went to see Gettysburg in its full edition, they gave us 2 intermissions, and it was a wise thing to do. Years later now that I have a 70-year-old bladder, I go to a long movie, and there's no intermissions anymore, and this can get serious.
Oh, yeah.
What happened to intermissions? Are they out of vogue? I mean,
yes, is the short answer. So here's how I do it, right? Because I do the same thing. I get a beer or something while I'm watching a movie, and then, like an hour in, I'm like, oh man, I gotta pee. So I figured out when when the transition points are in movies. So I'm like, okay, the big thing just happened. I got 5 minutes while the exposition of like them, oh, here's the fallout of what just happened. I know what just happened. I watched it, so I'll go to the bathroom
I
real
have
quick.
seen like some online publications actually, not even jokingly, put out like movie reviews being like, all right, you're gonna go watch Avengers Endgame. Here's where you can go to the
Here's where you can go to the bathrooms. I've seen that review before, 100%. And so part of it is because movie theaters are making less money. They don't want to.
I was gonna say, part of it might be just logistics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they just want them. They want everything to be shorter. You know, they love movies that are like 70 minutes long. They love that stuff.
Yeah, Hollywood
Back
keeps
to the
giving us
B-movie
like
days.
2.5 hour movies.
Yeah. One of the things that I've really loved about streaming, and like you said, you know, Hollywood just continues to like, you know, pump out these bloated, you know, like it just seems so wobbly, and like, you know, you're just like, oh, here's your big Oscar push movie or whatever, and it just seems like so, like a committee put it together, you know. Whereas like what I'm seeing now more in streaming, and I love it, is like the story is however long the story is, right? So if the movie is 72 minutes long, I'm the biggest fan of 75-minute movies. I wish every movie was 75 minutes, because it's like there is no fat in a 75-minute movie. It's you get to the story and you keep going until it's done. And so I love that, you know, because like before, Hollywood wanted to make at least 90 minutes and more likely 2 hours, because they were thinking of what the commercials were going to be when they start showing it, you know, because they're thinking of all those things. You know, it's not just what I make in the movie theaters, it's what I'm making on, you know, selling the physical media, what I'm going to make selling it to cable, you know, or like streaming it on, you know, the various, that's a huge selling point now. All of them are like, you know, HBO's like, we got all the Warner Brothers stuff, you know, and like Peacock's, we got all the Paramount stuff, you know, or whatever it is. No, Paramount's but whatever, you know, there's all these streaming services now, and it's marketed as like a real selling point. And I think that's kind of like nobody cares anymore. So, you know, like because we stream, you know, and there is no commercials typically, nobody cares. You know, you don't have to follow the structures and, you know, pad that extra 10 minutes in there so that you can sell it.
No, I want to say this thing about streaming too now is the length doesn't matter, because even some what they call TV series now, they go release the whole series in one shot.
Mm.
So if you want to, you can spend the whole day watching the series.
I've certainly done it too.
Yeah.
Yep. Haven't we all?
I think we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just sit down on Saturday morning and you're like, I'm going to just turn on that first episode of Lock and Key, and then it's like 6 o'clock. What happened?
I
And
think it's interesting with streaming shows, though. They no longer have to fit into, like, you know, a commercial time slot.
Yeah.
So, for example, I remember with The Mandalorian, you had some episodes that were like 25 minutes and others that were like 50 minutes,
Yeah.
just depending on how much time the story needed.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice. It's like it gives
I love
filmmakers
that.
that
I think it
freedom.
makes more sense
Yeah.
because you don't have that commercial limit.
I
Yep.
thought I'd binge watch Resurrection. 5 seasons. The shortest season has 76 episodes.
holy cow. That's
And
long.
they did the whole thing in 5 years.
Man. Okay.
Those are the people you need to hire to do things.
Yeah, but like I'm really and something like Cabinets of Curiosity that just came out, the Guillermo del Toro Netflix series. Wonderful, absolutely, and they're all like hour-ish long, you know, like self-contained movies. So they're just giving people the freedom to just make whatever the story is. So.
I feel like we've been talking a lot on this end of the table, and you've
Oh,
been
yeah,
very
what-
quiet.
Oh, I'm just enjoying listening to what you're saying.
Yes. What do you think? Please.
Oh, everything you're saying is pretty much right on. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I did like a quick list of just, you know, maybe the last 2 or 3 years of like the stuff that I think Hollywood has done that if you're not this is the you're not paying attention part. So just last year, Licorice Pizza is amazing. Pig with Nicolas Cage. It's the best role he's done in 25 years. Like, it's leaving Las Vegas level. Like, he should have been nominated for an Oscar. That's how good this was. Red Rocket with Simon Rex. I never thought that I would like see a movie with a VJ, and I'm like, this is really good. Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched, the history of folk horror, 3.5 hours of like every folk horror movie you could ever imagine. I've watched it 4 times already. I told the filmmaker, I was like, I wish this was 10 hours. And you know what? If it was, I would have done it because I've already watched your documentary that many times. Zola from last year is amazing. I really enjoyed the deconstruction of the Matrix Resurrections. I know a lot of people hated that, but I loved it. I just loved that she's thumbing her nose at, yeah, fuck all your stupid nostalgia. I'm going to ruin my own series. Thank you very much. You know,
That was a really weird movie.
it was. Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar. It's just a joyful, like, amazing, lighthearted comedy. The Empty Man, vicious fun. Psycho Ape, you know, Spirit Animal, Don't Fuck in the Woods, 1 and 2, both on Tubi. You shoot, it's amazing. It's exploitation, sleaze from like the 70s style at its finest. Let's see, what else here? Spontaneous, I already talked about. Palm Springs on Hulu, an incredible sci-fi movie. I don't even want to tell you anything about it. Like, that's how good it is. It just ruins it. But it's got Andy Samberg and J.K. Simmons and Linda Cardinelli, I think is her name. It's absolutely amazing. Promising Young Woman. I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Run. Bill and Ted Face the Music. Like, who would have thought 35 years later they would come back around and make this, like, really sort of, like, thoughtful and, like, heartfelt movie about, like, creating things, you know, and, like, the frustration of creating things. That was my favorite part. Oh my God, like, people, you know, they see the end product and they go, oh, that's amazing. And I'm like, well, I wish you could have seen me tearing my hair out and, like, screaming at my, you know, computer because I can't figure out, like, how to fix this scene or whatever, you know, or, like, crying because my editing software is just not compressing this file for me. Why would you just do it? You know, those sorts of things. Like, you don't get to see any of that stuff. And what Bill and Ted, that was the whole movie, is them just being like, we're kind of mess ups. And, like, but man, we'd love to create, you know, and just because they love to create, they bring together all this, you know, amazing, you know, collaboration with all these different people. So yeah, even like you can go back to stuff like The Matrix or Bill and Ted, you know, and like decades later and have like a totally different perspective on it. Even the stuff that they do like that sometimes can be like, you know, if it's the right, because that was the same, you know, writing team that was that was part of both of those, you know, and so like it's the reason why I think Chucky's been so consistently good, you know, where all the other horror series, I think, you know, they have the highest highs and the lowest lows, but like Chucky's just rock solid all the way through. You might not like some of them.
The panel is about, like, has Hollywood run out of ideas? Yet when you're naming these movies you love, you have named a lot of old properties.
Mm-hmm.
So there is still something to be gotten out of old properties. Like, you can still make them fresh again.
Perspective is the thing I tell everybody is perspective, right? Every story's been told at this point. Every story has been told. Right?
Every story's been told since, like, I don't know.
Since
like,
forever.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all about perspective. If you change that perspective, you know, like I saw this movie recently where called His House, right? Where it's this family is like they're basically rushing away from like a really bad situation in Darfur, I think is where they were coming from, and they're getting reestablished in England in like some of their government housing as like refugees. And it starts the story where you think the beginning is. And then about halfway through, they fill you in on what happened at the very beginning and give you context. And it changes the way that you feel about all the characters and everything that happened. And I'm just like, wow, like, it's just perspective, you know? It's just like starting it at this one point and thinking that you know everything about that, and then just start peppering it in, you know, and like start peeling the layers back. And that's where you're gonna get like the really rewarding stuff. I didn't put that one on because it's not Hollywood. It was made in England. It has Matt Smith, one of the Doctor Who's in it, is like a social worker. And I think he probably just lent his name to it to get it made. But the girl who ended up in Loki as the...
Sylvie?
Yeah.
I forget the actress's name, though.
Yeah, but she's amazing, and she's in that movie too, and she's fantastic. And so, I mean, I think people just have to look, and like, it's not even hard anymore, you know, with all the streaming options. Like, it's just right there in your lap, I feel like. Oh, I'm sorry. So it's always good. Like, what do you guys think? Yeah, definitely.
This hasn't happened in a long time. What I want is an experience. In the 70s, I happened to be in LA the week Alien came out.
Right.
And they ran it for like 48 straight hours, and I didn't go during the day because the lines went around the place twice. I went over at 4 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And believe it or not, the line was very short then. But the Egyptian is back away from the street. You have to go through an alley to get to it.
Yeah.
They had decked out the inside of that alley to look like the inside of the Nostromo.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
nice.
I'm glad I went because 2 days later someone set fire to it.
Oh.
But just as a completely, you know, the movie was so different from anything I'd ever seen. I walked away from it. I remember it very strong to this day. I don't see that happening with movies much anymore, where people prepare something that creative and present it in that dynamic a style. And I miss it.
I think it's like, it's pockets, right? You have to be in a place that sort of supports that. And so I've seen it in like New York, or I've seen it in Atlanta or Los Angeles, places that have a very strong film community. So I think regionally it still happens, but you're right. And part of that is because the studios kind of killed it. You know, I mean, they kind of killed the golden goose doing that, because like the reason that you couldn't get into Alien is because it's playing on 1 or 2 screens, you know, and so once that screening was sold out, you have to wait till whatever the next one is. Now, you know, with like the Marvel movies, it's on 4,000 screens, 6,000 screens maybe, you know, depends on what, I'm sure Wakanda Forever's in the 5,000 range, you know, and you still get some of that on a moderate level, you know, like I'll never forget the way the crowd reacted in Avengers Endgame when Captain America catches Thor's hammer. The whole fucking crowd went nuts, you know. I've only ever experienced that like once or twice ever in a movie. Jason X was another one where it was just, it was crazy. It was this film critic screening, and that audience was hot that night. And I just, like, it's not really that great of a movie, but man, it was so fun. And there's a really good kill where Jason, like, dunks somebody's head and
Some sort of
cryogenic, you know, and then smashes them, and they just, you know, into a
I
million
remember that
pieces.
scene.
Yeah, and the crowd just erupted. Like, I thought they were going to shake that whole building down, and it's just like, man, and that's what you're talking about, is that experience, you know. And so there's movies like that, you know, like stick out in my mind, you know, like Jason X. Who would think Jason X would be a memorable movie? But I'll never forget that screening as long as I live. One of the most fun movie screenings I've ever been at. And the movie's just okay, but, you know, like, didn't matter because, like, that movie was so fun that night.
A lot of sequels and prequels coming out.
Yeah, I mean,
What's sad is that, you know, we keep making fun of Hollywood for doing this, but then you look at the top 10 movies by box office every year, it's always the sequels, prequels, and remakes. So part of it's our own fault, because we keep giving Hollywood money. That is the only language they speak. So if we go to see, like, the live-action remake of whatever Disney film they're doing this year, they're going to be like, oh, look, money, let's do more of those.
Well, Amazon and the Dragon, the prequel to Game of Thrones,
House of the Dragon, yep.
they're risking a lot, and I watched some of it, and it's not up to the standard.
Yeah, the sad thing though is that it almost doesn't matter anymore, because people just are going to watch it no matter what.
yeah.
Yep.
But then again, it's like, it's kind of been like that as long as storytelling has been around. Like, nothing Shakespeare wrote was original. Every
No.
single thing he wrote was a retelling of an age-old, like, you know, legend or like a history or something. So maybe we as humans just like the familiar.
I definitely think there's some of that, for sure.
Just with a twist.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, all right, we've heard the story a million times, but have you heard it this way?
Right.
Yeah, it is kind of too bad that brand new movies come out and it's on 10 screens.
Yeah.
But so the small stuff doesn't have a screen to go on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, I mean, it really is because like,
It removes the event things because it's on 10 screens.
and there used to be like sort of mid-major studios that, you know, they're not Warner Brothers, but, you know, they have some production value and stuff like that. And a lot of those guys are getting sort of pushed out, you know, and it's really just like the big, you know, and it's like they sign these there's a back end to this too. I mean, the reason that Wakanda Forever comes on 5,000 screens or whatever is because they sign contracts like that say you have to play this on this many screens, you know, on they call it a clear screen, meaning that you're showing it all day. So like if you're a little movie house and you want to show Wakanda Forever, you better have 2 screens, you know, or else you're not showing like a one-off and, you know, trying to cash in a little bit, you know, on like whatever the big movie is that's out that time. And so it pushes out the little, like the mom and pop, you know, places like The Loft or like Film Bar, RIP, in Phoenix, you know, it like makes it nearly impossible for those guys. And so that's why, like, I am so impressed by The Loft. I mean, like the way that this community supports that and the size of the community is unbelievable to me. I think a third of Tucson is a member of The Loft. It's ridiculous. Like, really? Wow. I mean, who can get a 33% of anybody to agree on anything, you know? Jeez.
Yeah, I feel like that's happening everywhere though, like just these big corporations swallowing up like whatever mid-tier thing used to be, because it's happening in publishing too.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, you know, the big 6 became the big 5. They tried to become the big 4, but I think some antitrust thing is going to squash that.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, all these like little publishing houses, like these little independent publishing houses, are just getting either swallowed up or run out of business.
Or they have to fight for that one little spot, you know, and it's 1,000 of these small guys fighting for the one slot that, you know, the big publishers are just like, yeah, well, we got the other 11, so I guess you can have that one slot and figure out what you want to do with it or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's just becoming more and more, and, you know, it just sort of homogenizes a lot of, that's the reason why the Marvel movies are all the same, you know, because they're just like, here is the successful, you know, game plan, go execute, you know, so.
But
One
it
of the things
works.
streaming has done is it's employed a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's a lot of actors, production.
It's great for storytelling,
the whole
too.
thing that,
I don't know though, because something I've noticed about streaming movies is that all of them feel like they should have had a test screening and one more edit.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Like I watch some streaming movies and I'm like, there is a good movie in here, but it needed like one more edit, but you didn't bother because you were just going to push it straight onto Netflix. And so people were going to watch it anyway.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to have like, you know, all right, let's make this really good so it gets word of mouth. It's like, all right, it's good enough.
I've pitched this to every single filmmaker I know. I pitch this to them. I'm like, give me your movie, and I'll cut 15 minutes out of it and make it better. I can do it to any movie. Any movie. Some movies I could cut an hour out of. You
Or
know?
even just like, okay, maybe that scene needed to be reshot because the dialogue's actually really clunky. Like it kind of works, like you get what's going on, but it could be better.
I found it interesting, the list that you read off your phone. So, going back to the actual topic for today.
There's a topic?
Well, there was.
I mean, we've been circling around.
No, and that's fine. But it seems to me what you're saying and what everyone is agreeing on is that Hollywood as the machine is continuing to do what it's been doing, regurgitating. But because of all the streaming services, because of all the new technology, because of all the new ways to get stuff out, you're finding the independents, you're finding the small producers that are able to put something together that has quality and merit and still get it out there. But it's the alternative avenues that are getting it out. And I think it's the same thing with publishing, because now you can self-publish and now you can do some of these things that you couldn't do a few years ago. And so it's these alternate avenues that are going to keep things fresh while Hollywood continues to do what Hollywood does.
It definitely democratizes the process, for sure. But it also lets everybody do it, you know, which can be, you know, just saturation point.
Yeah, it can.
Oversaturation.
Oversaturation. And so, but the thing that I do like is that it's given the opportunity to a lot of people that have never had opportunity before. I just talked to my friend Karen. She's the first BIPOC director of a one of the Bring It On movies, right? And I thought it was really cute because they did a horror themed one called Cheer or Die, right? And I was like, what a great idea! And it's like this, property that's just sitting there dead, like nobody's making Bring It On movies. There's a bunch of old white guys that were making these movies, and it's just it's just like the same, and it has the gross camera angles and stuff, and so like they're like, yes, we're going to give you the opportunity. We're going to give you, it's an actual franchise. It's not like people are going to know what it is. And it had national attention. It got to play on Sci-Fi, and it's out on different streaming platforms now and stuff like that. But they had never given a person of color an opportunity to direct one of those movies, right? Half of the cast typically is minorities in those, and no, it's just a bunch of because they're comfortable with old white guys, and so I'm just I'm so done with those stories, right? I don't want to hear those stories. Those stories are boring to me. I've heard them all. I don't care if you make a really good one, it's still a really good one of something I've seen 50 times, right? So I want people that don't have that opportunity. And so, I have so many of my friends that are women that are getting the opportunities to write and direct now that it just wasn't there before. And so that makes me really happy. I wish there was a more targeted way to get eyes on these things, because now the problem is with the oversaturation is how do you find stuff, right? And it's largely through social media and the different communities that sort of support these things. But it would be nice if there was more focus or more targeted, ability to give some of these just a little bit more, of just a look, getting eyes on them, and so if that's different websites that, put together stuff, or me taking, that was a movie where I'm just I just want you on my podcast because I want you to be able to talk about this, because this is stupid to me that this is the first time that this is happening, but I want you to talk about what your experience is on that, so that other people that are in your same boat, can do that. And so I'm seeing that now. I'm seeing trans creators being given the opportunity. There's a really good one, Alice. Oh God, she's called. It's So Vamp. It's on Shudder. She's got another movie coming out that I just saw at a film festival that's even better. And she's 18 years old. I'm furious at how talented this kid is, But hey, who was giving that kid an opportunity before? Nobody, right? But now she has that, and her voice is totally unique and tells things from a perspective that I could never even, even comprehend almost, and I want those stories, and I'm glad that those people are getting those opportunities. No? Just stretching? Who else has questions? It's always good when we have interaction. I love questions. And
let me run one silly comment that I still remember. Some costumer at a science fiction convention was commenting that one of the Matrix movies, in order to get the right effects, had 20 different designs for the main character's coat, because as they were doing different actions, it worked better if it were different. And I think anybody but a costumer would never have recognized him.
Yeah.
And it would never have occurred to me that you'd do something like that.
You might actually not realize it, but there is flair that happens in movies that comes from set design or costume design. Don't Worry, Darling, the new Olivia Wilde movie that everybody was super mad about. It's an okay. It's it's Stepford Wives and it's okay. But man, the set design, if that doesn't win the Oscar for set design, I am seriously going to be pissed. It's unbelievably good. And just those sorts of things, and I think just add incredible depth to lots of movies, and you can tell one that has put a lot of effort into set design and sound design and lighting versus one that just sort of mailed it in. It's so obvious. And I have a filmmaker friend. She made this movie called The Stylist, and I started pulling out all these 70s references. And she's like, I haven't seen any of those movies. I don't even know what half of those movies are. And I'm like, yeah, but you're doing it. You're doing exactly like what Brian De Palma was doing. You're doing exactly like what the Italians were doing in the 70s. And maybe you were influenced by somebody that came after that or whatever. But it's all over your work, and the color palettes are beautiful. And it's just you just look at it, it's so gorgeous, and it's just it adds another layer to the film, and I just love that stuff. Yeah.
You're talking about the formulaic machine gunning of various types into the market to make money is not really a big surprise to most of us. Most of us recognize that. Yet occasionally, a real gem suddenly just pops out. What is that? Is there something that usually creates that, or is that pure random?
I don't know. I mean, I think that is sort of one of those things that it might be lightning in a bottle. How does something like Get Out happen, right? It was just sort of lightning in a bottle, right? It just hit at the right time. The right people saw it, and the word of mouth was amazing, and everybody just went out and it won him an Oscar for a horror movie, right? They do not give Oscars for horror movies. That's how fucking good that was. And so,
although I think he got it for comedy somehow.
Well, that's the
Golden Globes.
That's the Golden Globes.
Those categories make no sense.
They don't make any sense at all. But
Golden Globes don't make any sense, come to think of it.
some of it is taking chances though, because I don't think anybody was really bending over backwards before that to give Jordan Peele real opportunities to make movies.
I think a lot of movies that end up getting that feeling are ones that are familiar but have just enough of a twist to feel new. Because I'm thinking how everyone freaked out when Deadpool came out. They were like, oh my god, this is so new, this is so fresh. But you actually think about the plot, and it's no, this is a pretty run-of-the-mill superhero plot. But what they did differently was the attitude,
right.
How they had him breaking the fourth wall, how they were irreverent about it. But it's the plot is pretty typical. So I'm it was familiar enough that people were comfortable with it, and yet it was just different enough to feel fresh. And Get Out is kind of like that too. It's a kind of typical horror movie in a lot of ways. And
it's
yet,
like Pod People or Body Snatchers.
Yeah, but the twist is, of course, that there's that racial undertone, and also how it ends, how it turns out the guy who goes into the house becomes the monster, he becomes the slasher.
And it's crazy. I mean, I never thought that stirring, using a spoon to stir a teacup could send shivers down my spine, but you can, right? And it's just again, sound design, it's just wow, it's just the hair's standing up on the back of my neck right now just thinking about it. And so I hope that there's opportunity out there for some of those people. And I think you are starting to see it a little bit more in I think Chloe Zhao is a good example of this, of somebody who...
They'll never give her another Marvel movie.
They won't, but I loved what she did with it. I love that she's just I'll make the movie I want to make anyway, so whatever. When you win an Oscar, you can kind of do that, But she was a very small filmmaker, and Frances McDormand took the chance on her. I think that's, finding those collaborative partners too is a big thing. So one of the things, I used to think writing was a solitary thing. For years I thought writing was a solitary thing. And over the course of the last 5, 6, 7 years, something like that, I just realized what a collaborative effort it is. And there's a lot of different pieces that are moving around in that. Even if you're writing it just yourself. I still bounce ideas off of people. I have creative partners. I have a writing partner now. I never thought I would write something with somebody else. I was like that. No, why? Why would I do that? And then it turned out to be super rewarding. The screenplay I was talking about that won the contest. I wrote it with my writing partner. And she definitely makes me better. And so I think it's some of those things of taking those chances And, you know, sometimes it takes a big person, you know, like somebody like Frances McDormand who already has an Oscar and can go, yeah, I can make this weird it's not, Nomadland is not even really a movie. It's almost a documentary. Like, I know there's a place called Courtside that...
Yeah, a lot of those actors were not actors.
They
it
were
was just
not
like,
actors.
all right, let's get all these real people around a campfire with Frances McDormand and just be yourselves.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it's just super unique storytelling, and it can be very affecting, you know.
But not in the MCU.
Yeah, but it might not translate into that. But
I'll say, the MCU has been taking some chances on its directors. Like, we actually had that panel last night about whether they have a director problem, but I'm like, well, at least they're trying something. It's like, all right, let's throw this new director a Marvel movie and see what happens.
Yeah, I have friends now that direct Marvel. I was just like, this is so stupid. You made a silly little horror movie, and now you're directing Moon Knight. How did this happen? You know, and they're just like, you know, your guess is as good as mine. But they made something that dealt with time, and Moon Knight deals with time. And so they're like, oh, these guys already understand like the big concepts behind it. Let's get them to be involved. And I love the television shows are where they're really taking the chances. WandaVision is one of the best like missives on grief I've ever seen. It's like, it's heartrending. Like, it really is. And I didn't think that, you know, they were going to be, you know, they would like mix in all these like classical, you know, like I had a friend who gave up on it because he's just, I don't understand what they're doing. He said, I Love Lucy, and I'm like, just stick with it, dude. You just give it some time, and then, you know, once he got there, he finally understood. But like,
and then they gave us that Marvel mush ending.
Yeah. So I mean,
witch fingers.
But I love that they take chances with that stuff, and give opportunities to like smaller people. I think that's great. And like,
yeah, at the same time, all these opportunities we've been talking about have been with these established properties.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, right now, I'm not mad at any director or any actor that goes and does a Marvel movie, right?
Yeah.
Because like Benedict Cumberbatch is Doctor Strange, right? But he also got to do Power of the Dog because he's Doctor Strange, and he doesn't have to make $10 million on Power of the Dog. He can go do that for scale or whatever because he believes in what the story is. And so he can go and make these small, you know, and all of them do that. You know, Scarlett Johansson's a great example of that. She goes out and she makes, you know, like Black Widow, and then she makes that weird, you know, like divorce with Adam Driver.
Marriage Story?
Marriage Story, yeah. And it's just like, and they come out, you know, like around the same time, and you're just like, wow, that is range right there. That you can be like superstar, superhero.
It's like they have their day job and then they have what they like to do.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
A paycheck movie and a heart movie.
Yeah, and it's not like the most embarrassing paycheck job you could take. Because we were talking about Bill Shatner earlier, so I can give you some embarrassing paychecks. Who else has questions?
I see parallels in what you're saying with the movie and the stream, all of that industry, and the writing industry, where there is a very closed group that handles publishing distribution, and it's not going to be easy to break into those guys. But now with independent publishing, you've got all of this, but they're still hanging on to that promotion, distribution, and it's very hard to get through that.
Yeah, it's true. It's because, like, ultimately, these things that we think of as art, like, the people upstairs think of as a product.
Yep.
Like, they don't care what's between the pages, they just care that those pages sell.
Yep.
And if somebody says, I just want another schlocky romance about, like, you know, an evil king and, like, this spunky warrior girl who's, like, gonna take him down and they fall in love, like, that's what people are gonna publish.
Yep.
Yeah, and in the movies, in what you're saying, you've laid out a lot of really good work people don't know about.
Yeah.
They're not letting that interfere. It's competition.
I've been doing film podcast for, I don't know, 7 years. Well, I mean, really more like 12 years. But been producing one for like 7 years myself. And, you know, I'll talk about the big stuff, right? You know, but like typically what I want to shine the light on is the smaller stuff that other people are not finding, you know. Because does does Black Panther need my help? I don't think it does. I think we're all going to go see Black Panther, whether I like it or not, or whether I even have an opinion or not, right? And so, I'll talk about it, and I'll talk about how much I love Killmonger as a villain, and I think he's one of the best Marvel villains ever, and all these, and like he's so relatable and all these things. But I mean, ultimately, everybody already knows about that, right? So I would much rather talk about a movie like She Will, that's on Shudder, with Alison Krieger, where she plays like this grand dame matriarch actress from Scotland who she's recovering from a double mastectomy, and she's like she's being reclusive and gone to this retreat so she can heal. And there's all these parallels between like her journey and things that happened in that area, between like witch burnings, in like the 1600s and stuff like that. And they sort of like interweave these stories, and she's just got this really complicated, like where she's prickly and you kind of don't like her, but then you do kind of like her, and you understand why she's the way that she is, and it's just like these super complex characters. And like I'll talk about that all day long because I want you guys to watch that movie.
Yeah, some of it is on us. Like the fact is, we're the ones voting with our dollars, and if we keep getting dollars to the MCU, to Disney, etc., then they're going to keep making those movies. And meanwhile, we have the power to say we want to watch that movie. Like, we want to read that book that no one's heard of, as opposed to just, I guess I'll go see Black Panther again.
Right. Yeah.
Some years ago, I went to a theater here. It's one of those, we have 40 screens under here.
Yeah.
It's the smallest theater they had, and they only had 2 showings in the afternoon. Is of The Dish, which is the antics going on around a radio.
The Australian one?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've seen it.
I enjoyed the hell out of the movie.
Yeah.
But if I hadn't made plans to go to that afternoon's showing, which only stayed there for like 4 days, so I went out and asked them, why aren't you? He said, well, nobody's coming to see it.
Mm-hmm.
He said this with a straight face.
Mm-hmm.
I went, well, how can they? You're only showing it for what is the decision behind that kind of crap?
I mean, it's largely
money.
Politics and money, and people like Disney and Warner Brothers saying, you're going to give me all your screens. So there's no screens left over. That's why.
But the fact that you went out and saw it, that was you exercising your power. So good for you.
Yeah, I've done that plenty of times, and I'll even when I see stuff. One of my new favorite hobbies now that like film festivals are streaming, a lot of them now, is finding these new movies and then just putting like a little check mark in the back of my head of like, okay, just wait until this comes out. And then the second that it does, it's like, it's playing at this movie theater, or it's streaming on here. Go see it right now, It's a movie called Dinner in America that's on Hulu. It's my favorite movie of the pandemic. Sat on a shelf for 2.5 years. I don't know why. It's brilliant. It's the best thing I've seen in 5 years. And now you can watch it, and you should. Everybody should go watch Dinner in America. It's amazing.
And it's 11, so we can clear the room.
Sorry,
we can talk about this forever.
Yeah, real quick.
Quick thing. Can you give me the name of 2-3 podcasts for somebody who wants to look at something like that?
Let me think of some stuff that is like some of the smaller ones. So there's one I really like called Horror Movie Survival Guide that talks about like horror movies old and new. There's a really in-depth one called How Did This Get Made? It's about just weird stuff that's been created.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Play-In Podcast Network. If you enjoyed our show, please check out D&D Journey of the 5th Edition and Ragnarok Enroll a Scion Hero to Ragnarok Story. Also, check out our Patreon page for more content and behind-the-scenes things, as well as joining us for a one-shot game or two.